Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a former Boeing 737 pilot and a member of PMDG's tech team. In today's video I finally have the opportunity to show you the PMDG Universal Flight Tablet right in action. So we are standing at Barcelona Airport in the Ryanair Boeing 737. We are already connecting the pushback equipment, but we still have to do a little bit of our setup in order to get going. We are going to be using the Universal Flight Tablet on the entire flight, and I'll show you all of its features in action. So let's take a seat in the captain's seat of our Boeing 737 and let's get going. You can see up here on the docking system that we are closing our EOBT, so let's go ahead and start our setup. 17 minutes to run and we will be sure to make that EOBT. Alright, so we've just arrived from previous sector and fuel-wise we actually tankered through so that we don't need to refuel and take any delays. So let's have a look into the Universal Flight Tablet and set it up for our next flight. We're going to start on the electronic flight bag application over here, where we can request our data directly from SimBrief. Now, the version you're seeing over here is still somewhat of a beta version, as I'm recording this a little bit prior to release, so don't worry if not everything works 100% as it should. We are going to get there, and those things are going to be resolved by the time we start, or by the time it is released. Alright, so over to our operational flight plan. Will be the Ryanair 1342, call sign 4 Tango Juliet from Barcelona to Palma to Mallorca. Should be a quick 20-minute flight or maybe 30-minute flight that we are going to do today. In terms of fuel, we did some pretty good fuel calculation. 5.1 is what we need and 5.1 is actually what we have down here. But let's quickly review the weather at Barcelona to make sure that everything is still good. So Barcelona right now 05084, it's going to be a slight tailwind on our departure from runway 24, but they are still using it for noise abatement reason over here. And then we are going to Palma de Mallorca, where the weather is in for a runway 06 arrival. And finally our alternate showing undefined right now. That is something that is still being worked on, but we can always type that in ourselves and have a look, for example, at Valencia Airport, which is the alternate that we've planned today, which we can see is very nice as well. Also really cool, you can just go to simple menu over there. If you are not so good at reading METAS, then you can always just have a look at the simple version of things over here like now. Okay then, so that's our flight overview. Now for the more detailed information we are going to move over to our operational flight plan as I mentioned. So let's go ahead and start our pre-flight procedures and start programming the FMC. So left it off over here from the last flight. Here's a cool thing. You no longer need the SimBrief exporter tool, but you can simply use the Universal Flight Tablet. Whenever a flight is imported in here, it will be available to the FMC down here as well. So going to flight plan request, you are going to find the route in there, or otherwise you can simply uplink the route like this. Barcelona to Mallorca, that's your standard format here, and here we go. Alright, and it's going to be the Ryanair 4 Tango Juliet that we're going to fly today. Departure of runway 24 left, let's quickly check. It's going to be the LAPA 5 Quebec departure. So let's insert that one. Shows 4 Quebec in here for beta testing. I do tend to use the IRAC data that originally comes with the airplane and not update the Navigraph data so that we're all working on the same basis. So if the IRAC is slightly outdated, then that's the reason why. Alright, our arrival is going to be an Isla Zulu approach, runway 06 left. Let's quickly check. We've got the Tolzo 1 Romeo arrival today that we are going to fly, and that one should be right down here, Tolzo 1 Romeo, and then an Andratx transition. Alright, load, activate, execute. Then we can go ahead with our performance initialization. Once again, cost an X6. Welcome to Ryanair. And the reserve fuel we are going to find down here in the flight plan. So that is... it's been a while since I flew with this. In any case, what you can always do is just add those. Alternate fuel 2.1, final reserve 1.1, so give me 2.2 tons of reserve down there. Here you go, 2.20 fuel weight, we'll take it straight from here from the plane and cruising 16,000 they say. 19,000 is our filed level, we're going to start with that and then we might have to adjust that in flight. Alright, in terms of the average wind, we'll just take it right from down here from a waypoint in the middle, so La Toldo, 233.45, that looks about good to me, but we're going to uplink the rest of our information in a few moments anyway. Okay, cool, so we don't enter the performance quite yet. So with that, we are mostly done for the setup. We could prepare our arrival because it is going to be a very short flight, but I want to show you all of that in flight and how the Universal Flight Tablet makes it really easy to keep track of things as they go on. Alright, cool. So that's pretty much our setup. Now one important thing for Barcelona over here, we've got the El Prat VOR, the Papa Romeo Alpha and the Barcelona VOR, and we shouldn't overshoot a certain radial over here. That is in the airfield briefing. So what we're going to do is we'll set up the Barcelona VOR, BCN, and then I do remember it to be 235 radial that you shouldn't overshoot. Like that, because missed approaches from the 24 right might be in this direction. Okay, very good. So that's pretty much our initial setup. Also, I'm going to insert a 220 knot restriction as we used to do it in the real life as well. Very good, so that's our initial FMC setup pretty much completed down here. We can also input the initial climb 6000 set. Alright, rest eye cockpit setup, we don't really need the UFT for that, so I'm just going to go over this real quick. Choosing level gonna be 190, field elevation 0 over at Palma. Initial climb should be 6000, but let's go ahead and verify that by having a look at our departure charts. So, got them down here, the Navigraph charts, just click on departure and now it's automatically uploading whatever you might be looking for over here. Now Barcelona, quite a complex airport, so we better prepare our charts carefully, but we can make use of a little help over there a little bit later. So when you go on the main screen, then you've got the charts over here. Let's switch that one to the Navigraph charts, and on here we've got the airport maps in use. So from here, we've basically got the safe taxi function. Let's quickly turn off the location locker, and over here we can get our entire flight easily mapped out so that we can use that one for taxi and don't need to fall back to the paper version of the charts like you have them over here. However, in terms of paper versions, something that is worth mentioning is that with certain charts, the georeferencing is enabled. That is enabled in the aircraft by default as well. However, keep in mind your chart needs to be georeferenced for that to work. So it doesn't work on all the charts, but it works on most of them. Alright, so that's pretty much that. Let's go ahead with the pinned charts, and we set our departure is going to be the LARPA 4 Quebec, respectively nowadays it's LARPA 5 Quebec. And this is something that comes in really handy now. So whenever you are running into a situation where you don't have the current database, but you do have access to charts, then you can very easily just cross-check the charts that you have with what you have in the FMC data, and that way you can easily determine if you are going to need to make any restrictions or tell air traffic control that you're unable for the ANAV version of things and might have to fall back to conventional navigation, or maybe a radar vector departure, or if you can simply go ahead and use whatever you have anyway. So we are going to have a look at that now. Let's start on the bottom down there. Initial ATC clearance, climb maintained 6000. The LARPA 5 Quebec is 500 feet, then Bravo Lima 800 with a maximum of 205 knots and above 3000 feet. Now, prior to that, we've got a couple of waypoints over here, which actually are not mentioned in the database. So if we have a look at that, initially we proceed on the runway track, climbing at 500 feet, then a left-hand turn onto a heading of 189, intercept inbound to Bravo Lima 800. And as you can see already, our routing is quite a bit different over here because all those waypoints have been renamed, so we've indeed got different RX data over here. However, if we compare the tracks and the distances, we can still figure out if that stuff might work out, but you can see already that there is some sort of differences in here, so we might not be able to fly the ANAV version of things. Now, that is alright. We are going to see if all those waypoints are available, and then we might as well just build the set ourselves, or we are simply going to continue using whatever we have in here and use our chart overlay to verify that we are tracking correctly. Now, this just comes down to the way how I'm beta testing. As mentioned, I'm always keeping the IROCs as they are with the originally delivered plane, so that is totally expected that things like these happen. But as you can see, the chart itself is from 28th April, and the IROC data is a little bit older. Alright, so that is alright for me. We have cross-checked all of this, so let's go ahead with our flight itself and prepare our trip. You can see pretty much not a single waypoint over there. We are going to get straight into the arrival, but we'll check on that later on. So let's move on with the next part of our tablet that we need to look at. First of all, just a couple of basic things over here in the general preferences. This is how I've set mine up. If you encounter any difficulties like stuff not calculating correctly, just click factory reset. You will have to sign into Navigraph and do your options again, but apart from that, nothing is going to happen. So let's have a look at the performance tool now. We are sitting in Barcelona and we are going to depart runway 24 left. We'll import the weights from the airplane and we're going to import the weather from the real world as well. Hit calculate, and that is just as easy as you can get for checking out your performance data. Obviously in the real life we'd enter all of that stuff ourselves, but for your simulation this is about as easy as it gets. Also on the ground you'd always do the landing dispatch calculation, so once again we can get about as easy as things get over here with this and just run the dispatch calculation so that we know that we can actually land at the destination we are flying to. Alright, so that much for the calculations. That's as easy as it gets. You don't have any possibility to uplink this to the airplane. The real 737 can't do it either. So we'll have to type things straight from here. Okay, so we're going to start straight on here. Gross weight 65.9 and the weight it's calculated 65,871. That's the exact weight. And that is totally fine for us. So let's go ahead over here and we've got full thrust takeoff with a 51 degree assumed temperature. So it's going to be full thrust and 51 degrees. 92.2 versus 92.5. Small difference, totally acceptable because of the way the 737's thrust rating calculator over here works. So if you've got air conditioning connected or if your air conditioning system is pressurized, you will get a slightly different reading than if the system is not pressurized. For that reason, we've got the difference in N1, and that is totally acceptable. It's 0.8 when the air conditioning is not connected, and 0.7 if you've got a derated or a fixed derate, which we don't have today. Alright, cool. So that is our that's our thrust. We are good with that, and I'm going to reduce the climb thrust a little bit here. Let's take a climb 2. Let me move on to the takeoff page. It's going to be a flap 5 takeoff. We have just calculated. And then we are going to use the CG straight from the plane. 13.2, as we can see. Over here as well. Or rather over here. And the trim we got 6.5 and 6.5 in here as well. So 6.5 it is. While that is trimming, let's check our speeds. 136, 41, 46. And you can see that is not quite in agreement with our flight management computer. Now, discrepancies like this can absolutely happen, and in that case, if your FMC speeds are within 1 knot of the OPT speeds, you can take the FMC. However, if the OPT is more than 1 knot off from the FMC speeds, then the OPT speeds are always master. So 136 is going to be our V1, 136. And then we've got 41 and 46. Now that equals the OPT, so we can use the speeds right here from the FMC. And that is how you do things correctly in the Boeing 737. Okay, let's tune 146 up here as well. And that's pretty much our work done. Alright, very good. So with that, our FMS preparations are pretty much completed, and we can go ahead with a transit before start checklist and then get going. So, gear pins. We have 1, 2, 3 removed, oxygen test 100%, yaw damper on, nav transfer and display switch is normal auto, fuel 5.6 required and 5.3 required, and that is 5.3 on board, 4 pumps on. Fast modes on, window heat, I wonder why I forgot that one, is on. Air conditioning, PAX auto, bleeds on, set, press mode selector auto, instruments cross-checked, auto brake RTO, speed brake, down to 10, park and brake is now set. Step trim cutout switch is normal, radius radar transponder set and standby, rudder and aileron trims 3 and 0, take a briefing discussed, PA complete, FMC CDO set, M1 IS-BACks automatic, we've got a reduced 26k, speeds 36, 41, 46 set, up here, and the step trim is 6.5 units set, performance weight and balance, sign send, phones off, EFB. Now, over here, we finally got one, and it's in airplane mode and stowed. As you can see, it's not connected to the internet over there. So EFB's airplane mode stowed, flight windows and cockpit door are locked, doors closed, passengers seated, before start checklist completed down to the line. Let's go ahead and start up the APU. When that thing is running, we'll disconnect all the external equipment, and then we're ready to go. So, air conditioning unit can be removed already, and once that thing is gone, we should see difference in the thrust as well. So 92.5, and once air conditioning actually becomes available, you will see that thing is going to go significantly down. But for that, we need to wait for the APU. In the meantime, we can already tell GSX to prepare ourselves for the pushback. And it's going to be pushback facing south. So normal Barcelona pushback over here. Those things always take a little bit longer, but Barcelona is just one of these airports. It does have quite a complicated taxi though, and that is where we want to pick up later on, and where we are going to make use of the Universal Flight tablet next. Alright, so generators are available. With that we can remove the ground power, remove the chocks, and then GSX is preparing. So, look at that, we've got 92.5% and one now. Now let me turn on the bleed. Bleed is on. Now this takes a little moment to recalculate. And technically speaking, these should change now. I'm wondering if the external air conditioning we used earlier had an influence on this. That can sometimes happen in the 737, so they should have changed in the meantime though. Might be time to write up another report. That is, well, obviously it's one of those things I want to show you, but so be it. Alright, cool. So, our setup is pretty much completed. We've done everything we needed to. Let's go ahead and go straight over to the map. And you will notice that these automatically change. So, for example, you're on the charts for your landing, you've got the approach chart displayed, then it is automatically going to change over to your taxi chart on the ground and so on. Basically, pretty much the same that the real unit would do if you purchase that package, which, by the way, my former airline didn't. But okay, that's fine. So, obviously I forgot to pin my SID chart, but that's alright. We are quickly going to find it down here in the list once again. It was pretty much down the line, I do remember. Here we go. Alright, cool. So, let's move straight to the taxi chart. That is what we're interested in for our departure now. Also, we can get rid of the sunshades. Don't need those for the takeoff. So, before start checklist below the line. Air compacts off, anti-collision on, parking brake set, transponder alt off, before start checklist complete. Okay, and the parking brake is released. Roger. So, small little feature here in the beta. Whenever you fly the beta, GSX is lowering your nose into the ground. When you fly the public release version, that doesn't happen. So, in case you're wondering why this happens, don't worry about it. That is normal. Okay, cool. So, we are ready to start our engines, but we need to wait until we clear the red line down here, so that we clear the gate area and can actually commence our engine startup. Looking over here, our engines are certainly clear already. Let's go ahead and start engine number 2. So, that's N2, oil pressure, and N1. Quick look while we are... Well, here we go, pushback is complete already, so quick look while we are commencing the engine start on there. Normally we need to monitor it in the 737, I'll make a little exception just to show you that the live position update is working on here as well, so we've got our position straight on here. Alright, the chart is north oriented, by the way. I didn't find any way how I could change it to become, well, to become a nose up chart. Quickly changing between the different chart types, by the way. The VFR and the world chart are obviously going to get you some more information here, like the roads and stuff like that. And the IFR low, well, that is kind of what we would use by default. Alright, so we've got a good start on engine number 2. Let's go ahead and start engine number 1. In the meantime, I'm going to go for an isolated pack operation in here. If you're wondering, isolated pack, what that is, I did a separate video on the topic, so feel free to check that one out. So, N2, oil pressure, N1. Waiting for 25%, here we go, fuel on, make sure that the engine valve and the spar valve are operating, and here we go. Alright, looks like we've got 2 good engine starts. You clearly disconnect, clear signal on the left side with a pin, and have a wonderful day. Bye bye. So that's 2 good engine starts. We can follow on with the after start procedure. No NTIs needed for sure, but it is about coming the time of the year again where we need to actively think about NTIs and not just say, now we don't need that. Okay, flight controls, full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral, and the rudders. Full left, full right, neutral. After start checklist. Generators on, APU off, start switch is continuous, probe heat on, anti-ice off, air conditioning, packs auto, bleeds on, isolation valve, auto, flaps. That is 5 required, 5 selected, and the green light. Step trim 6.5 required set. Start levers idly turned, flight controls check, recall check before taxi checks complete. So, clear left side, clear right side. Okay, we're getting a slightly abbreviated taxi. Now, normally in Barcelona, you've got a long way around. Normally you go into Sierra, and then from Sierra you go all the way to the back, and then over here, and then you proceed via Mike, all the way around, then going south either here via Echo or via Delta, normally via Delta, and then Kilo. Now, what they do sometimes is that you can go straight over here, cross the runway at Delta 5, and then continue all the way down, cross the other runway still in Delta, and then left onto Kilo for a full-length runway 24. So let's lock that thing to our airplane position, and then I'd say off we go. Taxi routing is understood, parking brake is released, config check. So we'll continue with the taxi straight out, crossing runway 24 right. Again, not what you normally do. Normally they will always send you the long way around, because 24 right is the main landing runway, 24 left is the main departure runway. But occasionally when you're running short on time or when you're running short on slots, they would give you these shortcuts over here. That is just welcome to Barcelona Airport. Okay then, confirm clear to cross, affirm. Strobe light coming on, clear right side, clear left side, we're about to cross the runway. You can see on the taxi chart over here, the hotspot is marked in magenta, and that is basically making sure that hotspot that we don't run into the runway without a clearance. Alright, both sides clear, here we go. Alright, we continue southbound on Delta, and we've got another runway to cross over there. So clear the first one, strobe lights coming off. So we simply continue straight ahead, cross the next one, and then we turn left at the end. We'll do the checklist once we're past the second runway, because we can still be messed over quite badly by ATC over here. Usually, whenever there's a Vueling coming by, you always need to have careful look. They will get priority eventually, but sometimes ATC says it on a very short notice. So 30 knots, crossing runway 0220. Clear on the right side, and can we actually see anything here? Yeah, clear on the left side. Looks good to me. So again, Universal Flight Tablet for monitoring. Down here we've got the boundary between north ground and south ground. Then we continue all the way to the end and then make a left-hand turn over there. Alright, so let's do the before takeoff checklist down to the line. Config. Checked. Flaps 5, green lights. Depth trim. 6.5, set. Takeoff briefing. Left seat takeoff, runway 24 left, flaps 5, noise abatement procedure number 1. Acceleration in 3,500 feet non-standard. And the sit is taken straight at 500 feet, left-hand turn, intercepts the bearing inbound to PRF and climbing flight level 60. We're actually altitude 6,000, that's where the transition level is, so here as well. Cool. Emergencies, we proceed straight ahead, climbing a 3,025 miles straight ahead, and then we can return runway 24 right, or due to the tailwind might as well request runway 06 left. We'll see about that. Okay, any questions? No? Cabin secure, before takeoff checklist complete. Then we can continue for the full length. We will take the first one over here, that's Golf 3. But ultimately, you can see if you take a careful look down here at the chart, they all lead to the same takeoff position. So might as well take Golf 2 and then just have a little bit more of easier lineup. Let's take a quick look into the latest weather, just making sure that wind component is still alright. 100 at 5, so it's still about a 5 knots tailwind, but that is completely acceptable for the Boeing 737. Alright, so let's switch over to the departure chart. Cutting the corner a little bit here with the speed, but that is okay. In real life, obviously wouldn't do that. In the simulator, you know. Some people take it a little bit too serious, in my opinion. Others take it a little bit too little serious. But cutting a corner like that, when there's nobody around, certainly alright. Okay, cool. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. Before takeoff checklist below the line. Approach is clear. MCP, set. Transponder, Tara, strobe lights, on. Landing lights, on. Before takeoff checklist complete. Are you ready to go? Then so am I. Timing. Windsock confirms the tailwind we're aware of. That is fine. Stabilized. Set takeoff thrust. Takeoff thrust set. Indications normal. Checked. Gear up. LNAV. So, 500 feet, start that left turn. Okay, autopilot on. Now a little feature over here that I actually recorded on this very departure. Watch the routing as we are making that initial intercept turn there. You will see how, here we go, as soon as we're on the target heading, the routing is updated. I actually recorded that one on this very departure, and that's how it's found its way into the PMDG. Okay, starting the right-hand turn, and in the meantime we would have made contact with departure. They usually clear flight level 120, something the likes. So that's set. 120 checked, and removing those altitude restrictions. Alright then, 3500, buck up. Now let's use that UFT over here to cross-check our actual flight path. But this looks, well, slightly changed over here. I bet that's probably what that change in the SID has been about. But as briefed earlier on, it's fine for us this way as well. Okay, flaps 1. And we can already set standard. I might have forgotten to insert the correct transition altitude. Flaps up. Yep, I did forget to insert the correct transition altitude. Here we go. Okay, flaps up, no lights. After takeoff checklist. And we can release the cabin crew so that they can start their service. So, air condition and pressurization is 2.6 set. Altimeters, standard cross-check passing 5.5 now. Checked. After takeoff checklist complete. Alright then, VNAV, and off we go. So with that, our departure is pretty much completed. It is a very short flight, so as soon as we're cleared to a little bit higher flight level, or at least once we're above level 100, we are going to start using the UFT once again in order to start preparing our arrival, hopefully over there. Not too many things have changed on the arrivals in Palma in the recent years, as far as I'm aware, so I don't expect any discrepancies there on that flight. In the meantime, we've got an FMC message, unable to 50 knots at inputs. That is not a problem. So, very quick check here. That's like a 40-mile cruise segment. But I tell you what, let's go a little bit lower. Let's make it level 150 as final level over here, because I do anticipate that ATC is going to give us a little shortcut in a small while. Okay, so that's level 150 now set 3 times, and monitoring 1 to 1.5 once passing 10,000. Okay, so let's have a look into Palma de Mallorca and its arrivals. Now, getting that chart out, we can simply go on arrival. It's going to load that stuff up all by itself. Then let's have a look. Tolzo. The Juliet is runway 24 if I'm not mistaken, so let's go ahead and search for a different one. Tolzo 3 Mike. I do believe that is what you usually get on arrivals for runway 06. So Tolzo 3 Mike is what we'll take, and then for the approach it's going to be an ILS approach. Yankee runway 06 left. Here we go. Okay, and finally we need some airport charts as well, even though we are only going to use them for preparation and not for the actual arrival, because we will use our moving map for that. So, a few things for us to notice over here. Going over to the pinned routes, our Tolzo 3 Mike would normally lead us from Tolzo down southbound, and then across the mountains towards Andratx, and then from Andratx we start the approach. And that is what I've programmed in the computers here as well. We're probably going to get a shortcut, and if we do get that, then I want to be prepared. So let's have a quick look into how we can do that. In the meantime, the 10 checks are now completed. So, what I'm kind of expecting is after Tolzo, fly direct to Andratx, and then from there we are going to fly the approach directly. That's what I did at the real Palma like a dozen times. Normally you can ask them for that shortcut, and they will eventually give it to you if traffic situation permits. Might as well do that just now. So direct to Andratx, and then we're going to start the approach from there. And then we can make our lives easy as well, just cross-checking the data we have. 40 miles to the top of descent, that looks like a very good distance to me. Also, we got 1000 to go, and the vertical speed is reduced. Okay, so let's have a look into the arrival. We're going to start up here on the approach page for the ILS Yankee 06 left. Let's take the chart into the full view so that we can actually see everything. So, this is what I meant in my earlier video when I said, like, you can... The size of the screen is big enough that you can read everything without having to zoom. Like, this is my normal 4K cockpit view that I'm using over here. And you can see how easily I can just look down here, and even at a decent zoom level, like even if I fit the chart completely to my screen, I can still somewhat make out everything, and if I just zoom in at only a single step, then I can already read the entire chart. For the purpose of making it easier for you guys who can't watch 4K on the video, I am going to zoom in nonetheless though, so that you can see everything that we've got on here. So let's start our setup. I'm going to start with the courses 057. And we've got altitude capture, VNAV, and the thing is complaining about our altitude because we are rather close to the top of descent. So let's go to the forecast page, change the transition level 70, and the rest of the stuff we are simply going to request down here. And again, this is now coming through the Universal Flight Tablet and not through the SimBrief saved files that you used earlier on. The UFT is doing that stuff for you now. Okay, so courses 057 and 057. Frequencies 110.9. And we've got that set once and set twice now. Alright, and the minimums we have down here to 374. Let's go ahead and take that as well. So that's 374. Okay, wind data uplink is available. Let's load that in. And let's also go ahead and cross-check our arrival weather real quick. So, arrival. Happy with the simple version of things over here. We can, however, have a look at the full METAR. Clouds few 4,500. That's like the only thing you don't typically see down here on the arrival. Also, if you look at the chart over here, obviously we were still in the zoom from en route, but here we go with our moving map on the en route chart now. So this one you can always use as well. You can see we've already taken the shortcut down here towards Andrade, from where we are going to start the arrival. Alright, so weather at Palma, 24 degrees, wind 100 at 5, and the QNH 1010. Might as well pre-select that already. Here we go. And on standby, here it is as well. And then in the descent 1010. Alright, for the arrival, it's going to be a runway 06 left. And we're going to use a 10-mile ring and a 4-mile ring since we're in VMC conditions, making our life about as easy as it gets. Alright, fuel to go 400 kilograms, so that is a landing weight of 64.5. Rather heavy for Boeing 737, but then again, we are fully packed today. So, auto brake, I'll just set level 3 over here pre-selected because that's basically what we always use in Palma. But we need to do some calculations in order to be legal to fly it. Certainly once you become very familiar with the airplane, these things somewhat solve themselves and you get an idea, but nonetheless you always need to run your landing calculations, so that is what we do. As you can see, the auto brake setting over here defaults to auto brake 3 as well, because as I mentioned, that is what is mostly used. Okay, cool, let's hit calculate. You can see landing distance required 1,811 meters and the VREV 153 knots. That includes the wind correction. So that is pretty much our calculations done. Alright, so quick look over here. 147 plus 5 knots correction, so there's like 1 knot or different. That is completely acceptable and within the same scope of what you'd have in the real plane. Auto brake 3 selected, and then having a quick look into our the charts once again. Now en route, I do actually like to use those. And here we go, that is Palma. You can see they're sorted by airport. So got Barcelona up here for our departure, we got Palma down here for our arrival. And here we go. So as we can see, we are landing on 6 left and we want to go get off by November 2. Now 3,300 meters. and we just have to measure out that distance down here. And that is just like we did in real life, by the way. In real life, we've got the scale down here, and we would take a piece of paper, mark the 1000 meters box, and then just put that piece of paper on here in order to measure out the length of the runway we have to the intersection. So sometimes, you know, just take the easy option. Anyway, we will come to the conclusion November is about 1800 meters away, so that's pretty much exactly like we have it in our performance calculator. Where over here it is, come on, landing en route, 1811. Might have to do a little bit of manual braking, that's totally fine, and that's pretty much our arrival preparation done. Right, so let's get back over here. We're going to go to the start chart, even though we will not really fly it. So, but we still want to monitor our airplane's position. Can either do that through the charts available, or you just go over here to the en route chart, like that, and here you go. Alright, so that is pretty much your entire arrival preparation done. You can see the Universal Flight Tablet offers you quick access to everything you need, and the setup is really easy with that as well. Alright, over here we can change between day and night. I personally prefer to keep the night charts even during daylight because, I don't know, the day charts are just so bright, and you can see how the HDR in the simulator makes the rest of the cockpit really dark when you've got the day charts selected. With the night charts you can see everything's brightening up a little bit. I personally just prefer them, but that really comes down to your personal preferences. The detail, or the level of detail on the chart, as you can see, varies depending on the zoom level. Flying en route for a longer cruise, I would take something like this. Flying in close vicinity of an airport, I'd take something like that. For the prime reason, we can see airways over here, and even though pretty much nobody is flying airways these days in the real life anyway anymore, it's still nice to have these things available. Okay, FMC message, reset MCP altitude. We've got 5 miles to top of descent. The plane is already reducing to the target descent speed, so I suppose we're going to do that. Let's start by descending to about level 100, and then later on we're going to get down into the lower levels as well. Something nice that we can use when we're flying to an airport that has mountainous terrain around, like Mallorca certainly has, is the radar reference chart. So there's actually a couple different charts, but let's start with the radar reference, because that is really the best one you've got. So over here, radar minimum altitudes. Whoopsie, clicked the wrong button. Here we go. Radar minimum altitude. They basically show you to which altitude ATC can clear you down. So anything up here in that part of the arrival, we can be cleared down to 5,000 feet. Now, over here on the mountains, there are a couple of notes down there, as you can see, like the 1, the 2, and so on, and they indicate us the altitudes ATC can clear you down over here. Those are not necessarily at or above the MSA. They can be below the MSA as well. So let's have a quick look for the section with the 2 up there and find that on the chart. Over here, number 2, 5,300. Then number 1 over here, 7,000. Now the reason for that is that either the radar coverage might not be that good, and obviously we've got the mountains ranging to 4,741 feet right on the bottom down there. We are coming in somehow like this, flying towards Andrach, so we can see 5,000 is the altitude they can already clear us down to, and I do suppose that is what we're going to do now as well. So let's descend to 5,000 and set QNH 1010. Cross-check passing 14,200 now. Checked. Alright, descent checklist. Pressurization, land out 0, anti-ice off. Approach briefing fuel, discussed, ice out and out box checked and set, descent checklist complete. Fasten belts coming on. And that's about it. Rather bright here in the front. Let's get those sun shields out again. Here we go. Alright, so that's pretty much our approach preparation. I told you earlier that this chart, while very useful, also has a couple of substitutes that you can use. For example, over here on the en route chart, as you can see, we got the different MSAs, or the grid moras, in here. So for the entire grid we've got over here, the minimum is 6,700. But as you could see earlier, we can go lower as well. So let's just about have a look into the VFR charts, for example. which show us all the terrain contours and the terrain heights. Or we might have a look into the world chart, just giving us a general idea of what's going on, with a lot less information than the VFR chart, but with the terrain contour lines still in place. So this is kind of what that chart looks like. Quite useful in my opinion, even though, personally, I would just stick with the IFR load charts, and ATC is going to give you vectors anyway. Alright, so that's pretty much this part. Let's switch that back to the night mode. As I mentioned, I do certainly like that one better. Okay, so 12,000 feet, in other words, not too long until we can do our 10 checks and prepare the cabin for the arrival. We've done pretty much everything we needed. As you can see, especially the performance calculator is really user-friendly in my opinion, because it is really 3 clicks down there, and the airport information is actually pre-filled with FMC data already, so you really just need to click 3 buttons, hit calculate, and that's it. Obviously in the real world it is a little bit more complex than that, and there is a little bit more things that you actually need to consider when you are running these kind of calculations, but the whole performance thing is such a complex topic that I will do a separate dedicated video on this topic in the coming future. So in this video I'll just show you the quick and dirty way, how I'm sure 99% of you are going to use it anyway, but I will go into a little bit more detail about some of the tricks and some of the things that you need to be aware of when doing these performance calculations on the way in. For now, this is pretty much what you need to know in order to be able to fly this. So let's go back to the en-route chart. That is kind of the default. I leave it on when flying, as it gives me the most important information for the higher altitude flights. Okay, approaching 10,000, let's do the 10 checks. Fuel balanced with 4 pumps on, the lights are on, angular bank 25, air conditioning pressurization 3.60 sending set, fast modes on. And then we can check the recall, and finally 1 to 1.5 is deselected, 10 checks complete. Okay, very good. So that is that. Let's get rid of the sunshade as well. The clouds are doing a fine job of blocking the sun by now. We can see Andrach coming up straight in front over there. And from there we're going to fly the standard approach onto the ILS for runway 06 left. You can already see the airport coming into view over there behind the mountains. And we can verify that on the chart if we want to. Alright, we are receiving the ILS ident already, so let's have a very quick check that it's really the correct one. Pin chart approach, Yankee 6 left. Even though I just about noticed a small error there, we actually selected the Zulu approach, which is what you'd normally get. Zulu, not Yankee. Has a slightly different missed approach, that's about all the differences there are. Right, let's just keep it like that. So just to be sure, frequencies and courses should stay the same, 10.9057, and the minimum is 274 now. That's quite a bit lower. There you go, 274 is selected. Alright then, Papa Lima Mike is showing us ident, and looking on the chart, Papa Lima Mike is indeed what it is. So let's go ahead and run the frisk, and then the approach checklist. Frequencies 110.9, rings runway 06 left, 10 miles, 4 miles. Idents, we've got Papa Lima Mike and Papa Lima Mike. Standby instruments are set. And the course is 057, cross check and cross check. That's one off, that's because we've got the slightly older IRAC data as I mentioned earlier. Okay then, approach checklist. Altimeters and instruments, set and cross checked, approach rates checked and set, approach checklist complete. And remember, the approach checklist is the latest point in time where the pilot monitoring should display the vertical situation display, because it gives you a little bit better of an idea of what's going on around you, and especially a better idea of your entire energy situation. Talking about energy situations, if you look at the VSD, you will notice over here we might or might not just about make the 5,000 feet at Andrach NDB. But keep in mind, we've got a deceleration point just prior to it, so even though this may look like we might undershoot a little bit, we will probably still make it because of the level out that we're going to do with the deceleration over there. Alright, so just that little bit about 737 theory and some of the stuff you can do with the different display modes that you have available in the airplane. Another quick and dirty cheat that you can use for the plane, by the way, is what you've got on here and what you've got on here. So you can see that as long as we are, or as long as our track is not within 90 degrees of the runway track, you can see we're currently still flying somewhat away from the runway, we are not going to get any glide slope information shown on primary flight display. However, to cross-check that the energy management you're doing is correct, it would be quite nice to have that glide slope visible. Well, you can get it over here on the standby instruments, where the glide slope is always going to be shown regardless of the heading that you have. Going over here to the approach mode of the display, you would have glide slope information as well, but let's be honest, how many of you would actually want to use this page while en route navigating? So your standby instrument and the approach mode of the standby instrument is a very nice little cheat that you can use in order to have your glide slope information displayed. So I don't remember if we read the approach checklist yet. Well, tell you what, let's just do it again. Altimeters and instruments, set and cross-checked, approach rates, check and set, approach checklist complete. So reaching the deceleration point here in a few moments, the nose is going to come up and the airplane is going to slow the rate of descent. And what I really like about the 737 compared to, for example, the Airbus, is that in the 7.3, your speed buck is going to come down one by one on the knots, actually indicating you the very precise level of energy you're supposed to have. Compared to that, in, for example, the larger Boeings or in the Airbuses, the buck is simply going to jump, giving you basically no indication of where exactly you're supposed to be in the deceleration phase. So right now, for example, we can say that we've got the we are 40 feet high on the altitude, we are like 4 knots fast on the speed, so we're slightly high. On energy, that is. Saying slightly high on altitude would be too easy, but slightly high on energy. And that's something unique to the 737 that I'm not aware of any other aircraft type doing, and it is actually quite nice to see that modeled in the PMDG as well. Right, altitude alerter is checked there. I'm basically descending down via the arrival. That's usually what they give you over here. So we're just following the star on the way in. Right, next down is going to be 1900, and that's from where we are going to intercept the ILS as well. So that is set. And then we've got our second deceleration point over here from where we're going to start slowing down to the approach speed. In real life, this is really a beautiful approach to fly. It really is. In the simulator, also looks good, but the sim still doesn't quite cut it with all the cliffs and with the water you'd see in the harbor and everything. MSFS is good, but ain't perfect yet. Okay, turning final. We've got good indications. Approach mode is armed, and we've got Warlock captured. Runway heading 057 set. Okay, let's help the plane a little bit. Catching the glide. And we can go flaps 1. Speed checked. Glide slope captured. And that's a go around altitude of initially maximum 2000. Okay. So go around altitude 2000 set. Flaps 5. Speed checked. And here we go. Okay, speed target can come down 170. So the wind has changed quite dramatically from what we had in our cruise. And we're now facing slight headwind of like 10 knots or so. Let's do a very quick last check on the weather down on the ground. So, update that please. What do we have now? From 1300 UTC, so 7 minutes old. Train is noted, by the way. 7 minutes old and coming on the nose from the right hand side, slightly variable. QNH 1009. Okay, set QNH 1009. Cross checked and all good. Speed is coming down very slowly. I might just about help the plane a little bit, so we might just lower the gear now, but I would avoid use of the speed brake on final, so I'm gonna wait until 5 miles, lower the gear then, compared to the normal 4 miles in VMC, like so. Okay, gear down, flaps 15. Landing checklist. Start switches, continues, recall, check, speed brake, armed, green light, landing gear down, 3 green. Auto brake 3 set, holding at flaps. Flaps 30. No wind correction needed on that one, so let's set VRF plus 5. So flaps 30, 30 green light, holding at landing lights. The landing lights we're going to turn on as soon as landing clearance is received, but since we're flying offline, let's assume we've just got that. And the cabin is secure as well. Alright, landing lights on, landing checklist complete, and we are clear to land. Checked. Alright, so give me that approach chart over here, so that we can monitor the missed approach in case we need to. And then let's go ahead and have a little bit of fun. After all, that's what flying is about. Next to, well, not next to, but straight below safe transport of your passengers, obviously. 500 continue. We are rather fast because of the high gross weight. We are approaching like a ton below the max landing weight here. But that stuff certainly happens on 737. Checked. Okay, going through the slight thermal here, approaching the coastline. Continue. But let's get that radar descent under control. On the puppy.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Right, decrab. Slightly on the right hand landing gear. That normally gives you the speed brakes extending a little bit later, making the landing feel a little bit more comfortable for the passengers. Right then, speed brake up, thrust reverse normal. 80 knots. $60 knots, manual brakes, auto brake disarm, and then we'll just let it roll to the next exit. "30 minutes flight time, that's what I call a quick and efficient flight." Alright, let's take November 2, and then we're gonna go off to the right into Link and southbound, following the standard taxi route, and we might as well have a quick look at that on the taxi chart. Here we go. Okay, so we're gonna go right into here, into Link, and then southbound on Link for the standard taxi routes that we are using here in Palma de Mallorca. I'm gonna delay the cleanup of the airplane a little bit until we are southbound on Link, so that we don't have to stop the plane on the runway exit, which is what ATC does absolutely not want you to do. Alright, here we go. So, running southbound on Link, let's go ahead and read and do the cleanup, and then we can do the after landing checklist. Alright, that's our cleanup completed. So we're going to stand 60. That means we are going to go all the way southbound. And still southbound, and then on Mike we're going to enter the apron. Or we might do it as well over here on Juliet. By the way, if you're wondering why a couple of names might not be showing up, then the zoom level does play a role here. For example, if you zoom in really a lot, then you'll get a little bit more information than if you don't. But that data over here is coming straight from Navigraph, so it's only displayed on the UFT, and ultimately what they send you is what you get. Alright, anyway, we are following the standard taxi procedures here in Palma, so it's southbound on Link, and then right on South Taxiway, and then over here via Mike we are going to enter the main apron. In case you're wondering, it is something that I hear quite a lot on VATSIM. A lot of people, or a lot of VATSIM controllers tend to give the complete taxiway, like taxi via North, Link, South, Mike, stand 60. In real life, that's not how they do it. In real life, what they do, because they have the standard taxiway system published, is they just say taxi stand 60 via Mike. And then you know that you have to take the outer taxiways until you reach that intersection they mentioned to reach the inner apron taxiways. And if you're wondering where to read that up, that is going to be all in the airport general information charts that you usually skip over when you are trying to search for the taxi charts. So, going over here into Palma Airport, down here in the airport briefing, the one that everybody basically skips over, that is where that kind of information is published, where it is certainly quite important to be aware of. Here we go, taxi procedures general. That's why this kind of information is stored for you to read up. Okay, so stand 60 it is. That's the one over here. So we'll go right into Mike, and then from there we are going to the stand. So let's start the APU. Okay, system and brakes are normal. Recall checked. Our weight is heavier than 63 tons, so we are not going to do single engine taxi. That's only permissible below 63 tons of gross weight. We're at about 64.5 right now, so ain't gonna do that. Okay, recall is checked. Approaching the stand, let's turn off our lights. And here we go, stand number 60. Okay, looks like the guidance system is out. And we're just gonna stop on the bar down here. And this looks about right. Okay, parking brake set, APU available and online. 2 blue, 1 red, engines dead. Alright, so the plane is going to go out for another flight in a few moments, so we are going to leave it in a transit shutdown state over here, read the transit shutdown checklist, and that is going to be it. So, electrical on APU, fast modes off, probe heat auto, anti-ice off, air conditioning, PAX auto, bleeds on, APU bleed off, start switches off, And then we've got the auto brake off, speed brake down intent, flaps up and light, parking brake set, start lever is cut off, weather radar off, transponder 2000 standby, CB/RCB in, cockpit door unlocked, transit shutdown checklist complete. And both engines are below 20, anti-collision light can go off. So that's it, guys. I do hope you enjoyed this little first flight with the PMDG Universal Flight Tablet in the Boeing 737. When you are rating the features of the UFT, keep in mind this is just the basic features that every electronic flight bag needs that are implemented at the moment, which is being able to view your flight documents, being able to have charts and performance calculator, and the very design of the PMDG UFT, as Robert has announced in his introduction post, is that third-party developers will be able to add on to here, so more apps will be coming over the time, and PMDG themselves are also working on creating further apps for the UFT, for example getting all those menus we have here, the PMDG setup and the FS actions, eventually over into the Universal Flight Tablet. That's going to be it for today's video, guys. I do surely hope you liked this one. If you did, do let me know in the comments below. I'm very much looking forward to what you think of the UFT. Do let me know if you think the wait's been worth it, or if you think that they should have just thrown out something buggy and incomplete on the very first release. Thank you very much for watching. Looking forward to read up your comments on this one now that the UFT is finally coming to your simulators. Release date at the moment looks to be October 30th, but it could vary a couple of days plus or minus. As always, leave a like as it does help out with the YouTube algorithms, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more. And finally, if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. For now, thank you for watching, and I see you all again on the next one.